Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 CUC Masters seeding draw for open women's and mixed divisions. I'm Andrew Portwine, your competition director, and I'd like to start by saying seeding is not an exact science. I know every year there's questions about seeding and what have you, especially this year, looking for results has been a little bit difficult, and especially with Masters level. Masters teams often play in seniors tournaments, trying to find some common opponents, perhaps head to head with the Masters teams. Masters teams also don't always play as much as the senior teams to get as accurate seeding. So again, in exact science, as always, we're going to have the magical pot draw that's going to bring a little randomness to the seedings anyhow. We'll proceed through this. I would like to give one shout out to Blue in the Toronto area, Toronto, Ontario, who posts full results from his tournaments on his website when his tournaments are done. So it's not just final standings. It actually shows all of the matchups so that people like myself who are trying to find results and trying to seed as accurately as we can actually see head-to-head matchups and get some more intel on the teams. So I'm going to say shout out to Blue, and hopefully more tournament organizers throughout the country will start to do that so that we can not just see final standings and where teams finish, but head-to-head results to aid with this process for our national level tournaments. So having said that, we're going to move on with the seeding. I'm going to start with the open division. It's our smallest division, so hopefully we can get off smoothly here. I will say I'm flying solo. Normally, I have a partner on these broadcasts that will do some of the technology while I'm doing the draw. I'm going to pull some names. I've got a spreadsheet going so I can populate the pools. By the time you see this, I'm recording, not live, obviously. By the time you see this, it will be populated into the schedule shared by Ultimate Canada, and you'll be able to see all of the pools, but I will give verbal recaps as we proceed through. So as I said, starting with the open division, as always, the first two teams are placed by the competition director. This particular year, we have 10 teams total, so we're doing two pools of five, Pool A and a Pool B. So Pool A with our number one seed, I'm going to put Dead Circus out of Atlantic. Well, it's going to focus on me, but Dead Circus out of Atlantic, I'll try and get that to focus as we continue through. Second seed, so Pool B, we are going to have Ensum Elite. Again, not focusing, but you'll recognize those team names. Gold and silver last year, met in the finals, strong programs. Next, we have the next two teams, so 3 and 4 seed go into a pot for a draw. So I've got Still out of Ontario, and I have AFC Carbon out of Alberta. I can get that here, folding it up. Throw it into my flower pot that's made a few appearances here. If you hear a dog snoring, I apologize. But we'll draw a team out. This is going to go into Pool A. We have AFC Carbon out of Alberta. So just throw that into the pool. And as I said, that leaves us with Still out of Ontario as our other draw. I really wish that would focus. As we move forward, we're now putting groups of 4 into the pot for draw. The next 4 teams up in the seeding, I have Quack out of Quebec. Just fold that up and drop it in. We have Orb out of Ontario. Get them in the pot. Legion out of the Atlantic region. And Ensum with a second team. Ensum Prime out of Quebec are the next 4. As I'm mixing these in, I will say we have 3 Quebec teams and 3 Ontario teams. We have 2 pools, so we would like no more than 2 Ontario or 2 Quebec in any given pool, just so we don't overpopulate with Quebec and Ontario and have some regional diversity. That'll come into play a bit later. So Pool A, this third seed in that pool will be Legion out of Atlantic. Pool B. Next team drawn is Ensum Prime. And what I'm going to do at this time, we also have two Atlantic teams, and they have been both drawn into Pool A at this time. I'm actually going to reverse those two picks that were just made so that Pool A gets the Ensum Prime Quebec team because they were drawn into the same pool as Ensum Elite, also from Quebec. And Legion out of the Atlantic was drawn into Pool A with another Atlantic team. It would be prudent to move the Atlantic team so that they are not in the same pool. So I am going to flip those to ensure regional diversity. This is also something that is in the manual that competition directors do have the leeway to flip two teams within a pot that were just drawn to ensure that diversity of geography. So I believe that's fair to have not two Atlantic and two of the same program in the same pool. Returning to the draw, Pool A has Orb from Ontario. And Pool B gets the final draw, which is Quack from. So this leaves us with Green Light from Ontario and Roadkill, great team name, Roadkill from the Prairies. Given that both pools have one Ontario team, it doesn't matter where. If I draw Ontario, they can go into either pool. So Pool A will get Green Light from Ontario. Which means that Pool B will get Roadkill from the Prairies. So verbal summary until you can see this at a future time into the charts. We have Pool A, Dead Circus Atlantic, AFC Carbon Alberta, Ensum Prime Quebec, Orb Ontario, Green Light Ontario. Pool B, Ensum Elite Quebec, Still Ontario, Legion Atlantic, Quack Quebec, and Roadkill out of the Prairies. So fairly smooth draw, just the way I was hoping we could start out. So with open complete, we will move on to women's division. Women's division has 15 teams. We're going to do 4 pools. We're going to have 3 pools of 4 and a single pool of 3. We also have in this division 7 Ontario teams. So this is going to be a challenge as we get later into this draw to make sure we don't have a pool full of Ontario. But with 4 pools and 7 Ontario teams, we would like to have 2 Ontario teams maximum in any given pool. That will spread the teams out. We have 4 Quebec teams. I would like to have a maximum of 2. So I'm not going to force 1 into every pool, but a maximum of 2 in any given pool so that we're not overpopulating with the Quebec teams as well. So on that note, let's get started. First up, we're going to use pool D, E, F, G for the 4 women's pools. Sage out of Quebec will grab top seed, followed by Stello out of Ontario. So those are the 2 teams that are placed by the competition director. The next 2 seeds, you'll recognize Sour from the Atlantic. Last year had a really strong run, and Vintage out of Quebec as well. Very strong run last year. We're going to draw for Pool F at this time. And we have drawn Vintage out of Quebec. This not focusing is not great. Vintage out of Quebec, which of course leaves us with Sour out of the Atlantic. All right, our next four teams are Macrame out of Quebec, Aura out of the Prairies. Again, you'll recognize those as some traditional teams. They had good runs last year. Spiced Ultimate out of Ontario, having some strong results early this season, and Nostalgia out of Alberta. So with the snake draw, we are drawing for Pool G. Pool G. So this will join Sour. So we have Cora out of the Prairies. And we are drawing for Pool F, which is going to join Vintage, was the original first pick in the pool. We have Spiced Ultimate out of Ontario. Next up is Pool E, so joining Stello will be Macrame out of Quebec. And in Pool D, joining Sage will be Nostalgia out of Alberta. Oh. Our next four teams are Rosie out of Ontario, Grind Mothers out of the Atlantic. We have Quasar out of Quebec. And we have Queen Peas out of Ontario. We are drawing now for Pool G. This is our three-team pool. So this is going to be our last draw for Pool G. They have an Atlantic and Prairies. So any team is viable to win there. And we have Queen Peas out of Ontario. We are drawing for Pool F. One Quebec and one Ontario currently, so any team is valid. We have Quasar out of Quebec. Drawing for Pool E, which has one Ontario, one Quebec. Any team valid to go in here? We have Grind Mothers out of the Atlantic. And the final pick goes into Pool D, which has a Quebec and an Alberta. We have Rosie out of Ontario. And our last three teams are Toast out of Ontario, Lore out of Ontario, and North out of Ontario. So based on the pool, the draw so far, there is no pool that has too many Ontario. These are all Ontario. They can go as drawn. So we are drawing for Pool D. Oh, I have two. We get North. North out of Ontario. Drawing for Pool E. We get Toast. Out of Ontario, and that should leave us with Lower. Again, their Ontario team. Lower out of Ontario. So to summarize, Pool D, Sage, Quebec, Nostalgia, Alberta, Rosie, Ontario, North Ontario. Pool E, Stello, Ontario, Macrame, Quebec, Grindmothers, Atlantic, Toast, Ontario. Pool F, Vintage, Quebec, Spiced Ultimate, Ontario, Quasar, Quebec, Lore, Ontario. And Pool G, Sour, Atlantic, Cora, Prairies, and Queen Peas out of Ontario. So that is the end of the women's draw. Some interesting pools there. I'm looking forward to a few of those games based on last year's results. There were some very competitive matchups there. Masters 20 teams. We are looking at 4 pools of 5. We have the same format as last year as far as the snake draft going through. So we have pool, as I update that, W, X, Y, and Z. So the draw will go 1 to 4 across, 5 to 8 coming back, and then we jump to pool Z and we do 9 to 12, 13 to 16, 17 to 20. So there's a slight change in the snake for rounds 3 and 4, or seed 3 and 4 in each pool, standard as we've done in past years. First 2 teams are placed by competition director, no change in that. Top seed, Big Cat and the Kittens, out of Ontario. Great run last year, high quality play. Not too much doubt that they were going to be there. Second seed, Cold, out of Quebec. Next pot with seed 3 and 4 go in for a draw. We have Carp, out of Ontario, and we have Cranky, out of Ontario. So while I am shaking these up, we have 10 Ontario teams in this draw. So we will max out with 3 Ontario teams maximum in any given pool. And we have 5 Quebec teams. We will max out with 2 Quebec teams in any given pool. And we have 2 Prairies teams and 2 BC teams. I would like to spread them apart so that they are not in the same pool. Everybody knows if you're going to travel across the country, you don't want to play someone from your neighborhood. So we will try our best to separate the Prairie and BC with 2 each. Quebec and Ontario, especially Ontario, 10 teams. It's loaded. We will spread them out as well. So third seed in Pool Y, we have Cranky, out of Ontario. Which will leave us with Harp as our last team in the pot. All right. The next 4 teams getting into the pot are Dinner at 4 from Ontario, Lab from Quebec, Forever Young, BC, and Flames en Rose from Quebec. We are starting with Pool Z. So this team will join Carp. And it is Dinner at 4, also an Ontario team. Also a great team name. Pool Y, joining Cranky, is Forever Young, out of BC. X, joining cold, is Lab out of Quebec. So that pool has reached its Quebec quota, 2 teams. We don't want any more Quebec teams into Pool X. If I draw one later, they will be shifted over. And Pool W, Lemza Rose, as I probably butchered that with my word pronunciation. But we are heading back to Pool Z with our next 4 teams. We have Ouch from Quebec. We have Harfang Master out of Quebec. We have Rogue Hippo, Alberta. And we have Royale with Cheese out of Ontario. Also a pretty good name. I do appreciate the movie reference. So Pool Z. We have Harfang Master. In Pool Y, we have Rogue Hippo out of Alberta. We already have 2 Quebec teams in Pool X, so if I draw a Quebec team, it will be bumped to the next available space. And I drew Ouch out of Quebec, so Ouch will move to Pool W, which leaves Pool X for the last team in the pot, which is Royale with Cheese. All right, our next 4 teams. Rewind out of BC, Elder out of Ontario, Golden Age out of the Prairies, and King Bear out of Ontario. And we are drawing for Pool W right now. I don't recall if I put a Quebec team in, but no more Quebec teams. So we have Elder out of Ontario, Pool X. No Quebec teams allowed here either, as we've reached our quota. We have Golden Age out of the Prairies. Pool Y. Any team is available. Rewind. BC. And Pool Z. Our last team is King Bear out of Ontario. And our final 4 teams, we have Pushing Daisies out of Ontario, Paradisium, hopefully I'm saying that correct, out of Ontario, Wine Club out of Ontario, also a great team name, and Firefly out of the Prairies. Looking at our pools, our first 3 draws can take any team. Our final draw, we cannot have an Ontario team. So if there's an Ontario team as the final draw, they will be bumped back 1 pool and swapped with a non-Ontario. And I believe there's 3 Ontario teams in here, which means the 1 non-Ontario has to go into Pool Z, which is our last spot to fill. Let's see how the draw goes. So Pool W, two pieces. Pool W is Paradisium, Ontario. And if I'm saying that incorrectly, Please find me at Nationals, introduce yourselves, and correct me. Pool X. Next draw is Firefly out of the Prairies. We know that an Ontario team that remains in this pool cannot go to Pool Z, so Firefly will move to Pool Z to satisfy the geographic diversity. So we will go back to Pool X. And we have Wine Club out of Ontario. And for Pool Y, we have Pushing Daisies out of Ontario. All right, I will recap our Mixed Masters pools. Pool W, we have Big Cat, Ontario, Flames en Rose, Quebec, Ouch, Quebec, Elder, Ontario, Paradisium, Ontario. So 3 Ontario, 2 Quebec satisfies our requirements of maximums. Pool X, Cold, Quebec, Lab, Quebec, Royale with Cheese, Ontario, Golden Age, Prairies, Wine Club, Ontario. So 2 Ontario, 2 Quebec, satisfied for that. Pool Y, Cranky, Ontario, Forever Young, BC, Rogue Hippo, Alberta, Rewind, BC is in the same pool with a BC team that needs to be flipped. They would have been swapped with, so that was the 15 seed that they were placed in. They would have been swapped with the 16 seed. They would have moved to the next available slot. So I am going to shift Rewind from Pool Y to swap with King Bear from Pool Z. So that is swapping the 15 and 16 seeds to help BC not travel the country to play their neighbor. So that was a Pool Y and Z swap. So I'll recap again. Pool Y is now Cranky, Ontario, Forever Young, BC, Rogue Hippo, Alberta, King Bear, Ontario, Pushing Daisies, Ontario. 3 Ontario satisfied without having too many Ontario. Pool Z, Carp, Ontario, Dinner at 4, Ontario, Harfang, Masters, Quebec, Rewind, BC, Firefly, Prairies. Excellent diversity. We're happy with that pool as well. So we have done our open women's and mixed masters draw. Again, seeding is not an exact science, so thankfully the pot helps us a little bit. I ask tournament directors, if you're running regional tournaments, you're running tournaments in whatever province, please post your full results, not just the final standings. Post your full results so that we can find head-to-head matchups and have better seeding as we go through. For processes like this, it will really help us. And especially, as I said earlier, for Masters teams, when they're mixed in with seniors, they may only have 1 or 2 matchups against another Masters team in the entire tournament, maybe 1 game. And finding common opponents is good, but it's not always indicative with different age groups when you're playing seniors versus Masters. I'm probably going to put words into the Grandmasters person's mouth who's seeding as well, but when Grandmasters partake in seniors and Masters tournaments, it's still hard to find common opponents. So please, please, please keep your full results and post those so that we can use them when doing seeding. All right, that's the end of the draw. We will see you in about a week and a half or so, about a week in Ottawa for CUC Masters 2025. Thank you very much.